Today's book review is about Man of War, who, in my opinion, the greatest racehorse that ever lived. Well, maybe not ever, but of the 20th century, certainly. Now, I know many people will be there talking about Secretariat. Well, really. That's to ignore the total economic package of having a stallion. Now, you see, if Secretariat had been a gelding, his 100 furlong or body length or whatever win at the 1973 Triple Crown Belmont, you know. If he was a gelding, that would be sufficient. But he's not. He's a stallion. And you have to include the stallion economics into the total package. Now, this means, in fact, that you usually make more money after a stallion retires to stud than before. This is certainly the case with Man of War. So, when you start thinking, who's the greatest racehorse? Well, whose bloodline are they all trying to get? They're trying to get Man of Wars. They want that bloodline. That bloodline showed up in the latest, American Pharaoh. His bloodline shows Man of War 22 times from both sides, because Man of War remains one of the greatest broodmare sires. So even the women, even the females, the mares, are getting in on the act. It's not just the colts that carry the bloodline. So you see, it's a double whammy when you have a stallion. A gelding has to run forever to make any money. Witness Forgo, Exterminator. They had to run until they were 8, 9 years of age, because there was no siring to be done with them once they're gelded. Admittedly, Exterminator was an ugly horse. It probably wouldn't have had many mares in the first place. But Forgo was quite something. Unfortunately, he was a gelding. But Man of War certainly wasn't. And this is the book that traces his career with times and everything. And yes, he probably could have beaten Secretariat. He was that feisty, let's put it this way. The boy didn't know his own strength, and at 3 he was frankly becoming dangerous. Now Hastings, his grandsire, always was an evil horse. It was well admitted. But Man of War himself was no picnic. He could be playful as a puppy one moment and be ripping the skin off your back the next. Well, such is the way of stallions. That's why many people don't like to deal with them. However, this is a horse whose only loss was actually caused by his jockey. I'm afraid so. He got himself boxed in and waited too long to get himself out. Even so, Man of War only lost by a nostril, as it were. But still, the boy had game. Serious game. And that's reflected in his get, his foals that he sired, both males and females, colts and fillies. So, let there be no mistake. He's worthy of his #1 position on Blood Horse list of the greatest racehorses of the 20th century. Now, this book is full of stats, full of times, full of rumors, full of all the gossip, and it tells the real story of how racing was back then. Barely regulated, in the doldrums. Excuse me. And if it weren't for Mr. Belmont and Man o' War, it may have gone into the pit completely. Now, Exterminator had won the 1918 Derby, and Sir Barton won the 1919 Kentucky Derby. He also won the rest of the Triple Crown in that year. Now, Man o' War could have won, but Mr. Belmont felt that 3-year-olds should not be running that early in the year. Needed to get back into training after laying off for the winter. So Man o' War did not enter ever the run for the Triple Crown because he skipped the Derby, which is a shame, really, but you know, it is what it is, and it's too late now. Now, he won the other 2 legs, by the way, the Preakness and the Belmont. But that was later. Let Sir Barton. The difference in temperament between the 3 of them, because they were proposed for a 3-way match race. Now, it became 2, you know about the Sir Barton and Man o' War match race. But the reason Exterminator pulled out was because the other 2 wanted 1.5 miles. And frankly, Exterminator ran better at 2 miles and 3 miles than he did at 1.5 miles. Especially if the track was one big sloppy mess. He loved running in the mud. If it was up to his hocks, he was happier than several clams and won everything in sight. But no, they wanted fast track, 1.5 miles. So Exterminator pulled out, and the match race was Sir Barton and Man o' War. Now, I know people get really blind-eyed about horses and their favorites, but that was a guaranteed failure for Sir Barton. He was fat, he was lazy, his heart wasn't in it, really. I mean, yes, he looked magnificent, and he behaved in a very aloof and snobby fashion. But he was shorter, smaller, fatter, and lazier than Man o' War ever was. So this tall chestnut firebomb beat the heck out of him in their match race, which was very nice to see. And you can see these races on YouTube. They have kept it. But he was the darling of that racing era, which is completely different today because they didn't have starting gates, they didn't have photographs, they didn't have photo finishes, they didn't have automatic timers, they didn't have any of that. They didn't regularly dope test horses even. You could shoot morphine and heroin into a horse and they go streaking around the track like lightning. Yes, I know it dopes up humans and makes them fall asleep, but it has the opposite effect on horses. They'll run until they die, which doesn't do the betters any good. So, as you can see, playground for charlatans. They had to hire barbed wire and guards and guard dogs for Man o' War towards the end of his career to keep him from being nobbled by people who wanted to make a fortune on him losing. So, there you have it. I recommend this book. It is very well written for a book full of stats, and I think you'll love it. Thank you for watching, and please come again.